Hey everybody, Robbie Seay here, and welcome to the Worship Initiative podcast. This podcast exists to equip and encourage worship leaders and songwriters and artists and musicians and anybody else who's tuning in. And so to you, we just say thank you for doing so today. Jimmy McNeal is our guest today. Jimmy is a worship leader in Austin, Texas at Austin Stone Church, and he's a dear friend of mine, and he's a friend of Worship Initiative. He is a brilliant singer, and he's a brilliant worship leader. And so we're going to talk worship leadership with him, of course, but we're also going to hear his experience as a black man in America in 2020. We're going to talk about race. We're going to talk about reconciliation. It's going to be encouraging to you, I believe, and to me, but it's also going to be a word of caution for us. And he's going to lead us in many ways. And so I am pumped that he agreed to do so. And so without further ado, let's get to the conversation with Jimmy McNeal. And again, thank you for tuning in to the podcast today. Okay, Jimmy McNeal, we're already laughing. We hadn't even started the interview. We're laughing and cutting up.
I messed up your intro. Go ahead, bro.
But man, I want to say thank you for doing this with me. I was just, again, I don't know if what we just said is going to be on this, but you know, I know exactly what you needed is just more Zoom calls. That's what we all need in 2020. So thanks for getting on this with me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Love you, bro.
You know, you and I have been friends for quite a while. I don't know how many years. I'm not going to say, actually, we may sound old if I start counting years. But,
that's the truth. It's all right,
yeah.
man.
And I love you as a friend, and I respect you as a father and a husband. And we've led worship together, and we've shared meals together, and we've had a lot of conversations. There are some things that I was thinking about you specifically, and just, you know, this year and the things that our country's going through. And I thought, you know, there's probably some things I haven't had conversations with you about that I may need to. And so, you know, some of this will be heavy. Some of it won't. You know, we can talk about kids running around and family life and whatever else. But man, I'm grateful that you would get on the podcast today. I want to just start by asking you, what's this year been like? I mean, I know that's a loaded question because it's been a full plate on so many fronts. But would you just give me some insight? Like, maybe 2020, what has this year been like for you and the family?
Man, I would say for me and my family, it's been the worst year of our lives. We have had, for me personally, even more so for my dad, my family on both sides. Like, I'm married, and my wife, we've been married we celebrated 7 years this year, which is great, and I've been enjoying that, celebrating that, at least that portion of it. But I would say, man, on my mom and my dad's side, we've both lost family members, both to COVID. And just to natural causes. There's been, since April, we've had 5 family members pass away from April through July, and all of them close to my dad. They were people that passed away that he knew extremely well, including my grandpa, who was a patriarch in my family, and the person that people would say, you know, led me to Christ in a way. He was preaching whenever I begged Jesus to save my soul that night, but it wasn't a one-on-one conversation. But we've had a lot of one-on-one conversations since that day, and I would say he is the one man in my family, probably outside of myself, and maybe one other, that I would easily say, man, hands down, like if I had a conversation with them today, I know for a fact that they know that they're going to heaven, and they are like pursuing Jesus, and easily like only people in ministry right now. So that was extremely hard to lose him the way that we lost him. So partially with COVID-19 stuff, he had congestive heart failure when he passed away. But lost another uncle to COVID-19, and an aunt as well. And then one of my dad's aunt and his uncle both passed away within that time frame. But yeah, it's been a hard season, a lot of death. Yeah. So me and my wife, we saw a lot of death in 2016 as well. But this year, along with COVID-19 and having to be quarantined in our house, has been hard, because we both also got the virus too, bro. I don't know if I told you that, but I got it when I was on vacation with my son. Like the first day of our vacation, man, I got the virus, and then lo and behold, the people that I was around, which was her mother-in-law and her other folks, like they all ended up getting it, including my wife. And thankfully all of us came out of it A-okay, and we're all doing a lot better now. And things are really great. So, but it has been a year that has sucked.
Yeah,
To say the least.
yeah.
It's been hard, man.
And I knew that you had lost an uncle, man. Just had no idea that it had impacted your family like this, man. If you don't mind me asking, because a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are going to be leaders. Not everybody, but a lot of them are worship leaders or leaders in some way. And sometimes for you and I and other leaders, we don't either take the opportunity to grieve. I mean, that's kind of how I deal with grief. I just don't take the opportunity, or sometimes maybe we're not allowed to grieve in the same way. In other words, there's kind of expectations on us to maybe move on. And I don't expect you to be an expert on that. And I would imagine, we're still in 2020. So you're still in the middle of some of this.
I'm still grieving, bro.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I mean. Yeah.
Black folks, man.
Yeah.
I'm just
and that's what I mean. And so could you just speak to that? I mean, how do you deal with that personally, man? Do you have men in your lives? Do you have pastors in your lives that can help you with that, give us some counsel on that?
Yeah, man. So every Thursday, I've got my accountability group with 2 other guys where we share everything together and pray for each other and call each other out on things that we see when we share. And the way that we do that, we pray and we confess our sin to God first, and then we pray for each other throughout that process as the 3 of us pray together, and then we talk afterwards. So that's happening. I've got other pastors that are here that have called me and asked me, like, hey, man, how are you doing? After every instance, things with George Floyd, like Ahmaud Arbery, like all those things, when all those things took place, I had people calling me, reaching out, and asking me how I was doing. I would say also, man, one of the ways that I wasn't sure that it would happen this way, but me just trying to figure out how to respond within like the small platform that God's given me. I was just like, all right, Lord, I know people look at Instagram and they look at all this stuff. And I felt like I wanted to move people forward in fasting and trying to actually be Christ-like in this time frame, and not just hop on a side, but actually be like, yeah, I'm on God's side. Like that's the only side that I'll ever be on. And I do believe he would want us to fast and pray about what our next steps are as we're walking towards steps, not just stop and fast and pray and that's it, but as we're walking towards steps. So, man, I did this, I don't know how many weeks it was, but it started the same week that George Floyd was murdered. And every Tuesday I posted specific prayer points for Black people in general that people could just follow along and pray for. And they're still there. I'll throw a hashtag on there someday. I don't know. So that like people can like reference it if they want to and just type in that hashtag. But man, I got a lot of good feedback from that, of people telling me how thankful they were for someone that was Black, pointing them towards how to pray for Black people because they didn't know how. So man, that helped me through my grieving process for sure, being able to figure out and asking God, Lord, what should I pray right now? Would you teach me how to pray for not just myself, not just Black people, but for white people, for all these people? How should we be praying now? And I think he just gave me some really good insight on what to pray for. And it wasn't everything that I didn't get to put everything in there because there's not enough characters on Instagram to write all the prayer requests, but I did what I could. And man, I would say like having those really honest conversations with both my family as well, about all the hardship going on, but then talking to my other white brothers and sisters and other sisters and brothers of color, man, that are either going through the same thing or wanted to have understanding. Me talking helps me grieve. Being quiet is not, it's helpful at times when you don't have words to say possibly, but you need to talk. Like words need to be shared in some shape or form, even if you don't know how to say them. Getting someone to ask you questions. That's what counseling is, right, bro? Like they just ask you questions. They ask you 2 questions and you talk for 45 minutes about all this stuff. You know what I mean?
And then you pay them, and then you got to pay them, you know?
It's like, but it's worth it. So I would say like counseling, whether it be professional, and man, that counseling I've gotten from my accountability partners, and then other pastors that I know, and then the friendships that I like, the continued, not just like companionship, man, but the continued like true friendship that I felt from those people has been really great. Even people like from afar, it's been really awesome. And just having a wife that will just let you cry when you're sitting at Sonic, and she says, "Hey, let's have some ice cream and watch the Cowboy game tonight and celebrate your grandpa," and you just start crying, and she's like,
Yeah, man.
I get it. It's okay, and there are moments that like that I just will start crying. That's a part of the grieving process as well. And um, yeah, man. So I hope that answers your question at least to a certain extent. There's more I could say about like being Black and just that mutual like heartache that I felt any and every time that I see something on Instagram or Facebook or the news about someone of color, like something happening to them. Man, it's hard, man. It's traumatic and hard to watch, and also hard to walk through. And there's a certain amount of grief that is carried with that too. That has opened up a lot of good conversations with friends too, man. So
I want you to give me some perspective on that because, I had coffee with a friend of mine, a Black man who lives here in our city. He's a dear friend of mine. We've played music together for a long time.
yep.
One of the things that really, it just about knocked me over. This is what he said, and I want to get your thoughts on this. This is what he said to me is, and this was related to Ahmaud Arbery when it wasn't too long after that. He just said, he goes, the way that you're describing, he was talking about me, the way that I'm describing that incident, which was grotesque and tragic. Yep. I described it with those types of words, tragic, horrifying, sad. All the, you just try, I'm searching for adjectives, right? He said, and I respect that. He just said, but you got to understand, for me, it's traumatic. It's traumatic. And he said, it wasn't that long after that I went out for a run, and he said, you may go out for a run tonight. And although it's still traumatic, it's still horrifying.
Yeah, man.
That trauma is just, it's going to be harder for you to relate. He wasn't accusing me of, not having, sympathy, but maybe not having the empathy for what kind of trauma that brings. Mm-hmm. And you just use that word, man. Could you just speak to some of that when something like that happens, that it's actually traumatic for you?
Yeah, man. Like I'll take it to maybe one of the most recent things, which honestly something could happen in between this, in between our combo. Because also if you were to talk to any other like Black person in ministry or outside of ministry, they tell you it's inevitable that something else will happen. Because these things have been happening our entire lives and before our lives even started. And I'm thankful that these things are being talked about now, especially by my white peers, man. It's been great. But the trauma side of it, man, I would say when it comes to like the traumatic part of it, man, the most recent thing for us right now is the stuff that took place in Wisconsin. And just so you know, Robbie, and the people that are listening, the leaders that are listening, it was hard for me. I'm thankful that my friends were able to see and watch the murder of George Floyd. Like, I'm thankful for how God has used that in their eyes for them to see and have a lot of empathy and like compassion for people like me. I couldn't watch it. Like, when I knew what happened, I saw something on the news and I was like, yeah, I'm never going to watch that video ever. And I still won't. A lot of my other Black friends, they haven't either. And then seeing what took place in Wisconsin, and as soon as I saw his face pop up on the screen, and like the video kind of started where they were showing it on the news or whatnot, I was just like, man. I would say, man, when I saw his face, I saw my face. I saw my cousin's face. I saw other family members' faces. And for me as a Black man, it doesn't matter what occupation that I may have, because I'm Black and because of the way that different, whether it be Hollywood or family members have portrayed Black people, there is some fear there in some shape or form, whether it be within the police or within like someone that just is not used to someone being different, differences, and no matter what it may be, man, like I have to always be on guard. And you say your friend was going running. I don't like running, bro. I ain't gonna run. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, I ain't running nowhere. You know what I mean? And for me, man, I'm like, no matter how cautious I am, and my mom taught me this as well, I can be as cautious as I want to be, but there's still a possibility that something like that could happen to me just because I'm Black. And that is a very sad reality that Black people have to live with. And I'm praying that my sons and my daughter don't have to live with that same type of reality. But there's a realness in me that knows that some of that will still be in play as they get older, unless a miracle takes place. And God just does something. So I'm reckoning like He's doing now, but even more so, so that there's a rippling effect to the next generation, that they will fight against that and begin to see things more clear as they look at history. But man, it is traumatic because I see myself. Like when I saw George Floyd, bro, like as dark as he is, I'm just about the same like complexion. I was just like, there's no way I can watch this, man. And then folks told me about it, that like there wasn't a resistive arrest. There was nothing like that. It was just like, it happened. And I'm like, that would be me. I'd be the Christian dude, like saying, hey man, I'm good. Like I'll put my hands up, like put my hands out of the window. I have, if it's at night, I have all the lights on in my car, crack the window, have my everything out on the dashboard so that they can see and know everything already ready to give to the officer or whatever. And it's a hard reality that Black people have to face on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, man. And well, y'all can cut this if you want to, but I was in Florida, bro, this past week on vacation, and it was in a predominantly white area. And man, I'm just walking around the store, bro, and to be honest with you, I felt like there were two people in the store like following me that worked there, because I saw them so often while I was in the store looking around getting stuff. And man, at one point I just stopped one of them and I was like, man, I need to probably say something to him so that they know they don't have to follow me. And I stopped him. I was like, hey, man, where can I find? And I asked him where to find stuff. And I asked him, like, probably a few minutes later where to find something else. And after that, I never saw him again. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, man, that breaks my heart. I think you were probably following me. And yeah, so I think there's still like small things like that small things that happen. That we've just known, like that's just been a part of life, and that sucks, Robbie. Like that. Yeah. My one of my LTG they're both white dudes, and this morning we met, and our LTG is what I mean by accountability. So my accountability partner, Jared, he's one of the worship leaders on our team too. So Jared was like, man, because I told him about that, and he was like, bro, that messed me up, man, because I never have to think about that.
Sure.
That's not something I ever have to think about or worry about. And when you told me that, man, it just broke my heart. And he was like, I'm so sorry. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, man, it's life. But I also was thinking, man, bro, I'm glad you told me that. Thank you for like just jumping into that combo and just saying, hey, I remember that and I'm going to remember that, and continue to tell me about this stuff. Continue to be open with me about this stuff, man. So.
Well, having, again, and I said it earlier, but you and I have known each other a long time, and I know that the gospel of Jesus has transformed your life.
Oh, yeah, bro.
Transformed my life.
Come on.
And that's not a whitewash or a black wash or a.
Oh, preach that. Come on, Robbie.
Right. I mean, it doesn't wash over the pain and the sorrow of this.
That's right.
I really am. I want to know just where your heart's at in, I mean, do you feel ready? And of course, I know you preach the gospel and lead the gospel on a weekly basis. I don't mean that you're not actively involved in that, but what kind of power does that hold right now as you engage these types of tragedies and as you have these types of conversations? where does the gospel work itself into these conversations for you? And as you lay your head down at night, what kind of hope does it bring you?
Yeah, man. I would say I often remind myself, or I try to remind myself that um, I'm gonna say this, and it's not I'm gonna say it because God says it. All right, so just being straight up,
Mm-hmm.
we are sheep. All right, sheep are dumb. They do stupid things. They bite each other. Like
Yeah.
we do really ridiculous stuff.
Uh-huh.
And if you study sheep, like Rob, you may have read this book before. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's about a guy that like that's a sheep herder or whatnot, and he talks about Psalm 23 from someone who actually like does that, who actually was.
Oh wow, no, I haven't.
Yeah, man. I can't remember the name of it, but I got it somewhere in here, and I can take a picture of it, text it to you. But man, I think about that, and I'm like, okay, when I'm talking to people, some people, whether they just don't understand or can't comprehend how, like, whether they are being racist or just like naive, I've got to remember I have that lens on of like, okay, Lord, you're my shepherd, and I do really dumb things all the time, and I say really dumb things all the time. And you always have that patience and that grace towards me. Would you give me the fruit of the Spirit? Give me self-control. Give me that patience. Like, give me that peace. Like, help me to love them like I know you love me. And how would Jesus respond? And how would he lovingly call people out and lovingly like show people how much he cares as well? So when I walk in those combos, man, I think that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, something dumb is going to be said because we're sheep. And I might even say something stupid too. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like own that if I do, but I gotta remind myself that none of us are Christ. None of us are the good shepherd. But he's leading us and he's shepherding us, and his rod and his staff are what comfort us. So let that be. If I need to bring that rod and staff, and the Spirit leads me to say something that is extremely helpful, but also like will hurt them to the core to see it. It's like, man, if that's going to bring something good out of them, where there's some darkness there that they can't see, and I reveal it to them, oh Lord, that's your rod and your staff that's going to comfort them later. Because I know it's the man is blessed that calls out sin, especially within another believer. So, man, I would easily say walking in those combos, reminding myself that people are sheep, and also just asking God to give me the fruit of the Spirit to be patient and have self-control and self-awareness as well, and be vulnerable. And also giving me the strength to have those conversations again and again and again, understanding that at my church, one of my good friends, Halim Sa, he's one of the pastors here. He told me once, he's like, hey, man, you got to give, especially Black folks that are coming in within leadership and walking the same path that I've walked. He's like, man, you got to give people the grace to be second sometimes. And what he meant by that is I'm going to have to go through some of the hard stuff in order for the people behind me to not have to. That's what Martin Luther King did. That's what all these people that have gone before us have done. So it's like those worship leaders that are Black that are listening to this, those leaders listening to this, man, wherever you are, if you are within a predominantly white church where you're having these hard conversations over and over and over again, one, like, I get it. I'm there, okay? But two, I want to encourage you to keep fighting. Like, you're doing this not for yourself. Like, this is all for Jesus, and it's worth it. It's worth it. And it's going to be so much more helpful for the person that comes behind you. And when those more people get added to your team of color, that you'll be able to speak into their lives. And then y'all be like a great team, just pursuing Jesus and telling more people about him of different ethnicities because of the work that God has put you there to do within that like specific area of ministry, without you even knowing it. So
I love that. Crawford Loritz is a pastor that I love and respect. And one of the things,
oh man, I love Crawford, bro. Man.
One of the things he said that really has stuck with me is, diversity and understanding is only half the battle, that the Christian is actually called to unity. Now, unity is far, far more difficult than just some, diversity and just some kind of understanding. And I just want to say to you, man, I want to be like unified with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As a brother in Christ, because we've been to the cross and our lives are radically different for it. And I don't want to just understand you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you just to have some kind of understanding. I mean, I want to be unified with you. Man, would you speak to that? And again, I'm not expecting you or me to have all these answers, but when you think
spoke
about
to it, bro.
Yeah,
That's
but
legit. I just want to tell people to like rewind and listen to that again.
We're just quoting Crawford though,
But that's so good though, man. Because like if you walk into those conversations saying that, I even telling people that, hey, we're fighting for unity. Let's fight for unity. Oh man, the walls just come down, bro. And it's like so much vulnerability and so much honesty comes out of those conversations. And all sides are able to just be real and honest. And then you walk away more unified. Like you walk away more unified. Even if you're not on the same page, you're definitely not where you were here. But now you're like, oh, okay. So we're like here now. Okay. So I think that's so key, man. So you just said it, bro. I don't know if I got anything else to add to that, bro.
Hey, I do want to ask you. I appreciate that. I want to ask you. I'm just interviewing myself. That's what I'm doing here. You just. Hey, listen. A couple quick things before I let you go. Do you? And by the way, you're part of an amazing church, and so this is not some kind of. Tell us something about your church that's forced you into a style of leadership that you wouldn't have done. That's not the question. The question is, though, as a Black man who often leads, not always, but who often leads in a room that can be predominantly Anglo. Now, again, I'm not saying that's always the case, and it's not always the case at your church or any other church, but you've been in those situations, right? Uh-huh. And I did have a friend, a Black friend who's a worship leader, say to me one time, hey, look, you got to understand, I've actually had to alter some of the ways that I might lead, just for some of my own preferences, stylistically, the way that I might sing something, the way that I might engage. I can't necessarily always do that in those settings. I'm curious if you've encountered that, how do you give thought to that? Do you try to overcome? I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes just a little bit and understand what it's like for you to lead in those settings.
Yeah, man. I think the best way I can answer this question is, man, there's a passage in Romans 1 where Paul is telling them, like, man, I long to see you so that I may impart to you some spiritual gift, and it'd be mutual encouragement that we would have. And man, like the whole like long to see you portion, that's always stuck out to me since reading that in a different way. God showed that to me a few years ago. And man, like when you long to see people, that means you know them. So for me, the way I answer that question is, man, it depends on who I'm leading. Like as far as people go, like getting to know them, like, man, it doesn't matter if I'm at a camp or a conference or whatever I'm going to, I'm always asking the leadership, who are your people? Tell me about your people. Because ultimately I want to lead them. And if one of their goals is like to get them to another like step towards diversity within leadership, I will like push towards that. But man, if it's like a group of 90% white people that are 40 and up, man, I'm not gonna walk in, singing a ton of like Maverick City worship, or another like genre, man. Like I'm gonna sing a few hymns. I may switch them up a little bit, and I'm not gonna not sound like myself. I can tell you that. Sure. I'm gonna sing it like I would sing it. But man, I want to make sure I'm leading the people, because it ain't about me. It ain't about a genre. It ain't about like the musical aspect. For me, when I walk into a room and I'm about to lead people in worship, the first thing that I want to do is know the people and like actually lead them so that they may be actually led in worship. Because I don't want to be in a room where like I'm trying to lead and people aren't being led, man. I'm like, I'm wasting my time. Like, why am I here? And sometimes that can happen. Like if you come in, for example, like I know churches try to do this sometimes, and I don't know how I feel about it, but I'll say this: with the contemporary service and like the old school service, whatever they call those, sure. Like some people come in and they're like, man, I'm just going we're just going to change everything. And then they just drop that bomb on it. And it's like, man, that's a terrible way to start it, like in my opinion. And I kind of get like the separating of the two, you know, but at the same time, it's like, man, let it be a slow integration, like slowly, like let that happen, you know, throw in one song a month, one song out of all 23 songs that you might lead that month, throw in one, and then throw it in again the next month, and just let it be a slow process, man. We're a people that are so impatient nowadays, man. We got no patience to wait to see, and like it's hard, man, because we always get things so fast digitally, and everything's happening so fast. Like I think God, in a sweet and kind way, allows us to like walk through this season that we're even walking through in 2020, man, because we a lot of us just don't have patience to just wait on Him, and just wait for Him to move. Hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, that's good.
And I'll add that prayer is huge. Like you got to be praying for the people and how you ought to be leading them, and what songs they should be singing. Not necessarily like what songs you want to sing, but what songs does God want them to sing, and then you go from there, bro. Like no matter what kind of context you're leading in, you're like, all right, Lord, this is what you want, and we're gonna move forward, you know.
Yeah, no, I love that. Okay, so two quick ones, and then we're done. But
you know, I'm long-winded, so it ain't gonna be quick, bro.
Hey, and I'm going off script. I mean, I know I sent you some questions. Just forget those. All right.
All right, man. You did. I ain't answered any question you sent me. That's great.
That may be true, actually.
It is true, man. All you listening right now, this is all off the cuff. This is me and Robbie.
They were some good questions, though. I mean, they were good. I may not ask them.
They were, man. I can come back. It's okay.
Hey, listen. Here's what I'm curious about, just as a leader. What do you? And you know, if we need to, like, you can press pause on this. Say we take a minute to think about this. What are you most encouraged by, just in terms of the church at large? I mean, not necessarily your church and my church, but just the church. What encourages you in the area of worship? I mean, you lead worship. You're an amazing musician and singer. What are you encouraged by? And then also, what would you just challenge us on, church? And so, man, I'm encouraged, but then here's something I want to challenge leaders on. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, man. I'll start with the challenge. All right. And then I might add another challenge after I say the encouragement. Because the first thing that comes to mind, man, like, I love simplicity, Robbie. Like, I love simplifying things and not making things so complicated. And I think the challenge, bro, is like, all you leaders watching this, y'all need to actually be Christian. Be a Christ follower. Like, as simple as that is, as hard as that is, as complicated as that is, actually follow Jesus. Read Matthew, Luke, and John, and like imitate him. Look at the book of Acts, imitate that church. Like, continue reading scripture over and over again, reading the Bible yearly, like over and over again, and asking the Holy Spirit to lead and direct you as a leader, as you lead people. Because there's so many leaders out there that are not actually doing what they tell other people to do. They're not being Christ-like, and they're not being Christian. And they're not really like fixing their gaze on Jesus, the author and perfecter of their faith, you know, and laying aside every sin that entangles them and pursuing him. They're not. And that's what I want to challenge like us to be. Because when those things happen, when those things happen, that's when like revival takes place, not only in your heart and in your soul, but in the church that you're working at, within your team. Like, revival starts to just like mess people up. And the next thing you know, 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, 5 years down the road, you're seeing people that you've discipling other people to do the same thing. And man, your church is just, they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Sending missionaries everywhere. They're doing all kinds of stuff in the city. Like, be a Christian. Like, that's my challenge. Like, even within the racial stuff, be a Christian. So my encouragement, Robbie, is, man, I'm really encouraged that, to say it as bluntly as I can, that white people are talking about the things that Black people have gone through, and that people of color are walking through. I'm encouraged that there are folks in the church that are actually starting now to talk about how even some of the Asians in America have been, in a way, persecuted as like, you know, with COVID-19 stuff, man, where There's so many people that have been discriminated against of Asian descent by people, man. And there's Hispanics and Mexicans and Latinos and all these different things happening. And there are so many people that are just like, we're going to talk about this. I'm not just going to let this be just something that I just kind of keep going. I want this to stop. And in order for it to stop, it needs to be brought to the light. That's how things stop. You bring them to the light. So yeah, that's what I'm encouraged by in a big way. I know a lot of people would probably say, but they ain't doing enough. We ain't saying enough. And then there are people like, y'all need to shut up because y'all saying way too much. So in a way, man, I'm like, sadly, but in an honest way, if you're a leader that's saying like you're saying too much, I just want to let you know, I'm just going to tell you, you're being a Pharisee. Just throwing it out there, just saying like, that's just what's happening. Because like these things are things that are affecting people. And we talk about the things that are affecting God's people. And these things are, and we connect with folks and we allow them to just share those things. And we mourn with people who mourn. We weep with those who weep. And there are people who are mourning and weeping. So that's what we're going to do.
That's right.
Yeah, man. So I'm still encouraged by it though. I'm encouraged that like things are being talked about way more than they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago, man.
Well, with that too, I want to say thank you for jumping on here and doing this with us, man. I love and respect you as a friend and a brother, and it means a lot. We often close our times here just with the reading of scripture, the Psalms, of course.
Yep.
Are God's songbook for us, you know, and I figure a bunch of worship leaders ought to be reading the Psalms a little more. So would you just, do you mind choosing a Psalm and just reading that over us almost as a, you know, like a benediction for our podcast today?
Yeah, man. Psalm 119. It's the longest Psalm in the Bible.
You gonna read the whole thing?
I'm just kidding.
What does it have? Like 180 verses?
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, man.
Yeah.
Nah, but if I did choose that one, I mean, I'm reading Psalm 19, and I was like, man, it'd probably be funny if I said Psalm 119. So that's why I said it, just to make you laugh. I'm an Enneagram 7.
Oh, man.
Know about Enneagram stuff. I'm always in for making people have fun. So, but I am going to read Psalm 19, and this is what the Word of God says in Psalm 19. It's a Psalm of David. It says this: the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. Their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of them, or to the end of the world. In them he has set a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom leaving his chamber, and like a strong man runs its course with joy. Its rising is from the end of the heavens, and its circuit to the end of them, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The rules of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired than any gold, even much fine gold, sweeter also than honey drippings and of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is your servant warned. In keeping them, there is great reward. So who can discern his own errors? Declare me innocent from hidden faults. Keep back your servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then I shall be blameless and innocent of great transgression. But Lord, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. That's Psalm 19. Yeah.
This is God's word. Jimmy McNeal, thank you, brother.
Love you, Robbie.
Love you, man. Talk soon.
Yeah, bro.